You are listening to the Screen to Screen Selling Talk Show hosted by Doug DeVitri, your source to increasing sales, productivity, and the customer experience. In each show, we will sit down with world-class thought leaders to discuss latest trends, innovative concepts, and ideas to keep you ahead of the curve using the latest technology. Welcome back to the show. A very special guest this week, Ken Thoreson. He's an author of many sales books on sales management, sales recruiting, and sales compensation. Ken, welcome to the show today.
Hey, it's great to be with you. This is a fun day to do this.
It's Friday, right?
That's right.
Before Halloween. Well, tell me, Ken, we're looking at a new way of selling with screen-to-screen selling, and really what's making a transition sometimes from the selling in the fields to an inside sales rep type of position. Tell me a little bit about your background and how it kind of leads into selling technology or selling high-end consulting services with what we're using today.
Well, I think the topic is so critical because there's going to be a definite trend toward more inside selling, not only to reduce cost of sales, but you can expand your reach much better. So I've been consulting now for 18 years with a whole variety of organizations, some large, some small, helping them primarily look at their organization from the vice president of sales level, looking down at their organization saying, what's working? Compensation, sales distribution, channel distribution. And inside sales is a critical element in most organizations because certain times the field salesperson will work so well with so many accounts that they get stopped. They're just overloaded. They can't handle any more business. So you need to find ways to leverage your sales team.
Well, no, that's interesting because we're talking, one of the things you mentioned and you've wrote about extensively is compensation. Looking at the field rep compensation versus an inside sales rep, I find that inside sales is actually harder than the field because you're not physically present with them. How do you tackle a subject like compensation with regards to those two different types of skill sets?
It's absolutely two different skill sets because obviously face-to-face, we have emotion, we can see each other, we can communicate differently. But that's why with the technology changes today, the inside rep is going to have an advantage because they can see face-to-face or they can share information, but the listening skills become critical in that area. From a compensation issue, it depends, how I would say, what the role of the inside salesperson is. I ran an inside sales force, and in those particular cases, the salespeople were the hunters. They were the farmers. They had accounts. They worked just as if you were a field rep, but they did it from the phone.
Yeah.
Occasionally, they went out and did face-to-face calls with large major corporations based on the business-to-business product and services we were selling at that time. So in that case, they were would be compensated very similar to what I would call a field rep. On an inside rep, if I'm working together with an outside rep, where the outside rep may be I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the inside rep may be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we're working together and managing that territory together. I like to do a couple different things, depending upon the company. First of all, I want to say this. Compensation is strategic, not tactical. So compensation has to be aligned to the goals of the corporate entity or the sales organization. So that's the first thing that's important. So in an example, I'll do a compensation plan that the field rep, for an example, is compensated based upon hitting a quota, maybe based on margin, maybe based on adding net new accounts.
Yeah.
But the inside rep, if they are working together, then I have a team compensation plan where if the team hits the overall quota, they share a bonus number. Now, from a compensation perspective, generally, outside reps, if their salary is, let's just make up a number, $50,000, their total base compensation could be $150,000. So incentive compensation tends to be twice base. Inside sales reps, again, depending upon product and focus, maybe a one-to-one example. Their base and their incentive is equal to their base. And that varies based on cost of sales, degree of difficulty, or is the inside rep simply following up on orders, upselling some accounts, or are they involved in getting net new accounts as if they were a field rep? Getting that job description becomes one step of the compensation model.
Well, I want to ask you a question and kind of put you on the spot here. And it's maybe you can give me your depends answer. It's completely okay. But With inside sales being tougher than outside sales because it involves more skills, do you believe that the inside sales rep should be compensated more than a field rep?
Well, again, it depends upon the role.
Yeah.
If the tough part of a inside rep is that you either if they are the only distribution method, if
Yeah.
you only have inside salespeople, and their job is to find new customers and work new customers, then you have to look at your marketing first of all and say, okay, how aggressive, how much money do I have to spend in marketing to generate leads for the inside reps? And that becomes a component because cost of sales drives compensation models. So technically, I would agree that if they are the only distribution method, and if they are working new opportunities, building those relationships, upselling those accounts, they should be compensated equally to a field rep. Now, the reason for that is, again, depends upon your marketing. I've seen organizations, I had a client last year that had, I think, over 40 inside sales reps, very little marketing. And their job was dialing and calling and making calls on their own or finding their own leads.
Yeah.
Totally different job than if I have a marketing machine that's generating leads for me. So that's why cost of sales is a critical element. The hard part of inside sales is developing the rapport, enjoying the listening skills. And so therefore their skill level has to be higher. And we used to, do what we call 20 years ago, tape club, where we would record the calls and we'd have 5 salespeople in a room listening to each other's recorded calls so they could coach and learn from each other. And I think that is a key element for inside people, is to be able to really judge the effectiveness of their voice, of their listening skills, and the interpretation of being able to build a dialogue. We used to track talk time as an example because we found that the people who sold the most had the longest average talk time.
Wow, that's very interesting, and it really what I kind of wonder if we're looking at talk time as a metric. Is it in the customer's best interest to have a shorter talk time by getting straight to the point? Well, I mean, obviously, rapport aside, let's say we make an assumption that we've already had being able to build rapport, but isn't it in the customer's best interest to decrease the amount of talk time? Because
it may be the customer's best interest, but not the salesperson's best interest. The salesperson enjoys longer talk time to build a better relationship, to explore and discover other needs, upsell or cross-sell additional products and services, find out what else is happening in the company. So frankly, it's to the customer's advantage to have talk time. They don't think about it that way. In sales management, we have to look at people who can engage in conversations, who want to be able to be friendly and warm and curious and have a bonding type of relationship, and that can use this kind of medium in order to build that. There are a lot of people I've run into. I had a client last year, inside sales, selling business to business. They didn't even want to take their pictures and put their pictures on the website or their pictures in their email. They just felt uncomfortable. I said, no, people want to know who they're talking to. They want to see what they look like. And that's why I think it's important to use these kind of tools and mediums to enhance the ability to that inside person to be more effective.
Sure. And, one of the big emphasis now, marketing's always been big, but it's bigger now because the amount of trust factor that we have to build in order to have that conversation. How would you suggest for a company to restructure their organization, add on inside sales, and really kind of get down to increasing revenues with that without, blowing up the company internally?
Assuming they have a field sales force, outside sales force. Well, I'll give you 2 good examples. I just had lunch yesterday with a client. They have 22 people, somewhere around that, inside sales. They also have an outside sales force. They have a large web presence. They sell products via the website. They also sell direct. They do bids and large ideas in that area. They started with 5 people on the inside, just taking leads, calls coming in. Now we've split that sales force so they have accounts who are proactive, going after new business, and they have accounts who are just customer service people.
Yeah, okay.
So a lot of people will start initially with customer service, obviously having that. And then they'll gradually move the customer service people into managing a few large accounts or working as a overlay with the field people to managing those accounts. So both the customers being trained and depending upon the client, they're being trained of how they can leverage it more effectively. Certainly, cost of sales is a critical issue, and I mentioned earlier, reach is a big issue now. Because obviously, if I'm a field rep, depending upon where I live and where I go, I might make 3 calls a day at best.
Right.
And an inside person certainly can stretch that. So leveraging field salespeople, if you have that, is a critical element. Using tools like Zoom and WebEx and those kinds of elements, you certainly can present your product more effectively. You can show more people your product. You can provide engineering support services to technical products. Those are the things that people are looking at today to really grow revenues and improve profitability because they can manage the cost of sales.
Yeah, no, that's great. And looking towards, let's say, the future, with all this new technology, and it's overwhelming for me, even though I've got cords coming out of every bag that I have. What would you recommend a sales manager to let the buyer beware of all this new tech? What do you think is a mistake that they should avoid as they start to adapt some of this new technology into their sales process?
Well, there's 2 things that come to mind based on the question. First of all, the first thing that a sales manager has to work on today is their sales team using technology. What I mean by that is twofold. They're usually not effectively using CRM. They're not standardized on it. They're not inspecting CRM, inspecting if their salespeople are entering information more effectively. But the second part of that is, especially the age of your sales team, we're finding that the younger people really lack the skills to build emotion, relationships, and trust with buyers. A text message or an email is not a selling tool. It's a communication tool.
Right.
But we find people reluctant sometimes to sit down and really build a bond. Now, these are higher end, maybe products or solutions or professional services that our people are selling, because age-old logic is still there. People buy on trust and confidence. And you have to have that emotion when you sell. You have to transfer that emotion when you sell, and you have to get that buyer's emotion to come back to you to buy. And so with the younger organizations, we're really working with them on rapport building, discovery, asking questions about the buying and issues. And it's a challenge, quite frankly, but it's a big area right now.
Yeah, so you can have all the technical intelligence of the world, but without the social intelligence or the emotional intelligence, or even if you've heard internationally of the cultural intelligence, the technology is not going to work, right?
Well, I laughed. I was speaking at a conference, and afterwards somebody came up to me and said, well, my company doesn't have CRM. I don't know how I can manage my sales team. And I kind of laughed, and I said, well, when I started, and I'm much older than you, we had 4 desks for 4 salespeople, 1 telephone.
Wow.
And your database was on recipe cards.
Yeah, wow.
And you sorted that up based upon who you were seeing for the week, who your prospects were, and you kept notes on the back of that of all your calls. It still gets back to discipline and using the technology to leverage yourself. Yeah. That's why CRM is beautiful. That's why some of these kinds of tools are wonderful, that we can be able to work in that area. So that's all good things that people should be aware of. Sales managers today have great access to technology, but it can be overwhelming. And if they focus on the technology, they lose the issue about what is selling all about.
Well, that's spot on, Ken. And I encourage everyone to kind of dig deeper into Ken's work. Very diverse, there's so much substance there. I just really appreciate you being a part of the show today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You are listening to the Screen-to-Screen Selling Talk Show, hosted by Doug DeVitri, your source to increasing sales, productivity, and the customer experience. In each show, we will sit down with world-class thought leaders to discuss latest trends, innovative concepts, and ideas to keep you ahead of the curve using the latest technology.
Are you ready for more meetings in less time with less expense? Screen-to-Screen Selling has answers. Screen-to-screen selling is the fastest way to increase sales, productivity, and the customer experience. Screen-to-screen selling is a mindset before it becomes a skill set. Let's look at your beliefs.
Or even like join.me.
Receive access to upcoming episodes of the Screen-to-Screen Selling Talk Show, special announcements, and insider resources. Davitri.co/screen-to-screen. Order Screen-to-Screen Selling from 800-CEO-READ, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Books A Million, and McGraw-Hill Education.